Yo, I really dislike the state of women's streetwear right now, if there's even a state for it. But I really do dislike women's streetwear. And you'll be surprised why I dislike it so much right now. So let's discuss. Next, here I'm Making the Brand. What's up, everybody? Rob Norman here from Planet Brooklyn Academy, and this is Making the Brand, the series where I give you a little insider knowledge on how to start a clothing brand, and if you already have one, how to make it better. As always, please hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything I drop when it drops. And let's not forget, we are doing the 100K gain challenge right now. If you didn't see this from my previous videos, you know that we're trying to get this channel up to 100,000 subscribers. Now, I know we are a ways away from achieving that, but I always believe to aim for the stars. If you aim for the stars, you may just land on the moon. That's pretty far. So you always need to have a goal. And I believe don't just shoot for the lower, just be happy with what you can get. Shoot for the stars. And that's what we're going to do. So let's try to get those 100,000 subscribers so I can in turn help you with your brands. So I don't have to charge you guys for, consultations and things like that. I want to be able to just work with you on your brands and help develop it with you. And I've got so many messages from you guys that are really, happy that I'm setting up this goal to do this for you guys. So let's get to that goal so that I can do this with you guys and help you, because I love helping others, and it's just in my nature, and I really want to do that. So let's get to that 100K. Hopefully we can do it, let's say a year. Let's look at a reasonable goal, maybe a year we can do this. So let's make it happen. But on to today's topic. Why am I so enamored with the state of, well, I guess enamored is not the word to use because I'm not enamored about it. I am actually despondent with it. And why am I so despondent with it? Well, the reason being is that women's streetwear doesn't really exist. Now, there are brands out there. We all know that there are women's streetwear brands. But when I say streetwear brands, I'm pretty sure all of you out there are thinking of the major ones. You're thinking Supreme. You're thinking Fear God, you're thinking Kith, you're thinking Off-White, ALD. Those are the ones that you guys think of. But why isn't that when you think of streetwear brands, women brands don't pop into your head automatically? Why is it that we always think about these other brands? And these other brands are basically unisex brands. And then once they get to a certain level, they do create these women extensions, but they're all based off a masculine, base, so to say. Even though they're considered unisex, they all are basically conceptualized off of a male silhouette. That's what it's catered towards. And just that women are added into it. There are no female silhouettes. They're all basically men's silhouettes. But there's a whole market we're missing here with women's. Now, granted, there are women's streetwear brands. We have Ambush, you have Hell's Bells, you have Dime Piece, you have Misbehave. And the greatest women's streetwear brand of all, which gets no recognition, Married to the Mob. It is one of the first, if not the first, women's streetwear brands that started back in the mid-2000s. And why isn't Married to the Mob up there right next to Stussy and Supreme? Why is that? There's no recognition for that. So I really feel that the women's market is lacking. And this is why I'm so disappointed in it, because there is so much money to be made in the women's market. If you go back and think about how the urban market was back during urban fashion era of the late 90s, early 2000s, you had the successful brands like LRG, Echo, Fubu, but you also had the women counterpart brands that were just as relevant as those. You had your Baby Fats, your Juicy Couture's, your Apple Bottoms. And both of these, areas were doing exceptionally well, making the market much bigger, making the market so much more money at that time. Now, when you look at how things were then, and now you look at the market now, you notice it's a very uneven playing field. The most brands that we think of, as I said before, are the key 5 or 6 brands that we all know that seem to drive the streetwear market. But when I look at social media, there's a brand new streetwear brand born every day on social media. And they're all kind of a unisex brand because they know that, that most guys are going to buy the t-shirts and stuff like that. But here's the thing. Women are the biggest consumers on the planet. Women shop more than men. So wouldn't you think it would make more sense to make women's streetwear brands more prevalent than just men's? And again, we know there are women's streetwear brands out there, but why aren't we boosting them up as much as they did the women urban brands back in the late 90s, early 2000s? If we boosted these women's streetwear brands as we do the men's brands, it would be so much more money in the market and the field would be more diversified if we did that. Now, for all of you watching this out here, whether you're a woman or a man, I'm saying you guys should kind of tailor your brand away from male markets because it's oversaturated. The women's market is wide open. There's so much money you could be making in it designing for women. I personally feel women's market is much more creative than men's. There's so many different things you can do with women's designs, from cuts and styling, accessories that you can add, opposed to men's, which is a little bit more basic. So you can get more creative with women's stuff. So I would love to see that area grow more. And if more people got into it, it would diversify the market. Also, if you think about this, when you look at how the urban market worked, yes, a lot of those brands, as I said, Echo and LRG, they were unisex brands, and then they created offshoots of their brands for women. Fine, they have that offshoot, but then when the women's brands came up, women had more to choose from because now they had a dedicated, category for themselves. At the same time, they could still shop with the unisex brands. So they actually had more to choose from than the men had. If they did that in the streetwear section now, oh my goodness, you would have so much to choose from because not only could they stick with the top 8 brands, but they can also now shop with their own brands and see have a more diversity of selections. And that's the thing. Why aren't more people? I just don't understand why there aren't more brands doing this and why aren't these female brands being promoted? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And with women's brands, it's a lot easier to just make a spin-off of a men's line if your brand is successful. Now, that could be a little tricky because based on what your name is and how you're marketing your brand, how you spin it off into a men's brand will determine on a couple of things. First of all, the name has a lot to do with it because it's easier to go from something hard to go into something soft. But going from soft to hard is a little bit of a challenge. As, for example, Juicy Couture. Juicy Couture was doing billions basically with their line as just a women's line. Then they decided to do an offshoot and create a men's line. Now the men's line wasn't very successful. Why? Think about it. Juicy Couture. Juicy, no man really wants to be associated with Juicy because Juicy for the longest time was associated with the women's line. So once you try to put that into men's, it doesn't have the same cachet or feel to it. Also, what was the signature item with Juicy Couture? It was their velour tracksuits, and they put Juicy on the butt. Now, most guys are not wearing anything that says Juicy going across their behind. So that's where that whole concept failed. But if you notice that in the early 2000s, a lot of brands started putting, the names of their brands on the front for men's stuff, and it switched the market. Now, if Juicy Couture had did that, they probably would have had a better chance with their men's line. But the idea that most women, and this is just something that you just see naturally, most men look at women from behind, and that's why Juicy Couture put the word juicy on the back of them. But for a man, what do we pride ourselves more of? The front. So that's why a lot of brands in the early 2010s, you started seeing brands putting stuff on the front. You saw that with Billionaire Boys doing that a lot with their stuff. And it started to catch on. It's just started seeing other brands do the same thing. A lot of male-driven brands, and that took off. So if Juicy would have did that, their male spin-off line would have probably did better. But again, it's all in the name. Now, if a woman started Kith and decided to make a men's line, Kith being diffused into a men's line, you wouldn't have a problem with that because again, Kith doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have a meaning. Unlike juicy, it has a meaning. So starting with something like Kith, has no meaning. You create a brand, then you can do an offshoot of that and create a men's line. The same thing here, you can do the same with a women's line coming into the streetwear market. So if you're thinking of doing a women's streetwear brand, think about how you can spin this off into a men's line eventually, the same way men's lines spin off women's lines. So this is where I talk about the hard and the soft. So saying that you're doing a men's line and it's very hard, it's easy to soften it up. But if you do something very soft, it's kind of hard to make it harder because in the consumer's eyes, they're like, it's already soft. This is not, you can't make this hard. You have to make a new line with a different name. But if you want to keep it all the same, just make sure your name is something that's kind of androgynous, kind of just has no meaning of feminine or masculine. It kind of fits in the middle. You can spin it off. But again, I'm saying this to say that the women's market is so wide open that you can create a lot in this field. And if more people would recognize women's streetwear and start going into it, we can even the playing field. Because right now it's lopsided. It's like right now, like I said, your 5 to 7 brands that everybody knows is controlling the streetwear market. And then there's a bunch of these other brands down here that's just, coming out every day. And then you have these women brands here that are doing things but not getting the recognition. Why is the table not balanced? We need to balance the table. If we balance the table, we'll see a lot more creativity coming out. We'll see more brands working across the table with each other. There's more collaborations because again, we see collaborations happen with, sneaker lines with some of these female brands, but not as much as we see them happening with the male brands. So this is why I'm so disenchanted with the women's fashion streetwear market. And I want to see more happening in it because it's an opportunity for both sides to win. Because again, if women are pushed up more with their brands, it'll balance the tables and both markets will make money. As I said, that happened back in the 90s when we had the urban market trend. They both were doing well. So just my 2 thoughts on just why I just thought women's streetwear needs some help right now. And I want to see more of it. So if you're out there, consider, working more in the women's sector of streetwear because there's a lot of opportunities. All right, so that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, thank you for all your insight and questions that you guys have been giving me. Really been enjoying them. It's giving me thoughts of how to do a couple of other episodes. So I'm looking forward to writing some new episodes for the upcoming weeks. But on that note, as always, I catch you guys on the next video. All right, peace.